Like we're getting some folks in. Welcome to our attendees that are joining us today. We're really excited to have you with us.
I was waiting for something to say live and it didn't. So here we are. I'm excited.
I could give you my best impression of a lights, camera, action clapboard.
Oh, I like that. I like that. Gotta have many, many talents, Casey. You can't just be the qualitative expert. You need to have fantastic things. I'm excited to talk today. It's going to be a good conversation.
Yes.
Likewise, Courtney.
Yeah.
Thanks, folks, for joining us. Looks like we've got some folks joining here. See the attendees picking up. While folks are getting into the session and settled, it'd be lovely to use the chat for folks to introduce themselves. We'd love to know where you're from. And since we're going to be talking about the real story behind brand trust today, it'd be great to hear from each of our attendees how brands earn your trust as you reflect on your experiences with brands. Welcome, folks. Really excited to have everyone with us. Thank you so much for joining a few minutes early.
I'm sitting over here thinking about your question, Casey, of how brands earn trust. And unfortunately, I can just think about how they lose my trust, right? I think it's a fair. We'll take those answers too. We'll all kinds of answers about trust and brands.
So interesting. Those moments of friction are the sticky ones, right?
Right. Yes.
Yes, welcome. Looks like we've got some folks that are jumping on now. And as we're waiting to get started here, it'd be wonderful if folks can use the chat function within Zoom. Introduce yourself, let us know where you're joining us from. And we were just talking about kind of some stories. We're interested in understanding how brands earn or potentially lose your trust. So feel free to drop that in the chat as well. Thanks, Jim, for jumping in the chat. We are also looking forward to this webinar. Deliver on their promises. Great. Thank you, Nakia. And Rachel, welcome from Charlotte, North Carolina. We'll give it another minute or so here. I think we still have a good number of folks that are joining, and I'm seeing the number jump there. So we'll begin shortly. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, I really like that. So Trish says, be consistent. If you mess up, apologize and fix it. Tell me why it won't happen again. It's a great one.
Hi, Monica from Madison. And Farina from North Carolina. You're absolutely right. Brands lose trust when they go back on their promises. That's a great theme.
Oh, looks like folks can't see others' comments, so we'll have to be really diligent about making sure that we're keeping an eye on those and weaving them into the conversation. Terrific. Courtney, Otto, I think we should get started.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Terrific. Well, thank you everyone again for joining. We're really excited to have you all with us as we talk about the real story behind brand trust. Before we start, just a couple of housekeeping items here today. It'd be great for folks to continue to use the chat. May not. It looks like we can only send chat to hosts and panelists. Perhaps if you have the ability to send to everyone, feel free to do so. We will use the Q&A for the official questions. We'll be keeping an eye on that throughout the conversation, but anything that we don't get to in real time, we will make sure to circle back on at the end. And if we don't have time at the end, happy to have a follow-up conversation via email or online live. But it'd be great for folks to continue introducing themselves. Again, we'd love to hear where you are. Tell us a little bit about what you're interested in hearing during today's conversation. Again, we'll keep an eye on that Q&A feature so that we don't miss anything, and we'll have time at the end for questions. And copy of all of the slides that we will cover and share today, as well as the recording of this session, will be shared after the session via email as well. So with that, we'd love to get into some introductions, just so that you know who your hosts of this conversation are. My name's Casey. I oversee our qualitative team here at CMB. I partner closely with Courtney and Otto, who I will let introduce themselves. Courtney, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So hi, everyone. I'm Courtney. I oversee our Accelerate team here at CMB. We are the Agile team, and we focus on insights on an accelerated timeline. And most of our work is in the quant space, but recently we've brought 2 Qual solutions to bear, and we're really excited to show some of that here today and talk a little bit more about how the AI-powered Qual is really upping our game in the Accelerate space. Otto?
Great. Thanks, Courtney. And my name is Adil Wakar. I'm an Insights Director at CMB. I managed our recent brand trust research with Casey and Courtney, and we'll talk more about that shortly from the perspective of qualitative insights.
So an overview of what we'll be talking about today.
Absolutely. So when you leave today, when we're done with our conversation here, we're hoping you leave with 3 key things at least. We hope you leave with a few more, but here are 3 top things that we hope you leave with. One is just an overview of AI and HI meaning the human intelligence, and how that can power your innovation and really level up the insights you deliver to your organizations. Talk a little bit about the new ways that we're leveraging Qual methodologies to enhance the decision-making process, and then Adil and going through more of our brand trust results for those of you who joined us in our webinar in January. I think it was January 29th. We talked about the quantitative side of that study, so we're excited to bring the qualitative lens here to show you how trust is can be used to drive decisions and actions in brands. So a quick introduction on CMB for those of you who are not familiar. I'm not going to spend a ton of time here, but I wanted to just share we are based in Boston. I know we've got a lot of Boston people in the chat. So we are a insights and strategic consultancy, and we have a quantitative team, a qualitative team, an activation team, an accelerate team, and all of those teams are driven to provide innovative solutions. We really want to make sure that we make good impact and measurable impact for our clients and their businesses. So if you have a desire to learn more, want to talk to someone, don't know a lot about CMB, we encourage you to go to the website, reach out to one of us. I don't want to take up too much time for our content here today, but I did want to give you a brief overview of who we are.
And as we think about that idea of how we deliver insights, how we show up as we think about a strategic consultancy and working with our clients, all that we do is built on this foundational philosophy of the power of artificial intelligence coupled with the power of human intelligence. That's that AI plus HI approach that's really foundational to all that we do across, as Courtney mentioned, Accelerate, the quantitative, the qualitative work, the activating of the insights as well throughout all that we do. I think as our team has been on this AI journey, as many of you I think have been as well, we have found that these Gen AI tools that are increasingly prevalent in our industry today only take us so far, right? That human intelligence, the idea of how we use these tools, how we are taking the insights that we are gleaning that these tools help us surface and deploying those, applying those to help our clients solve business challenges is really the power behind everything that we do. So as we think about kind of the foundation to understanding brand trust, this idea of AI plus HI is really foundational to how we tackled this idea, how we explored trust and the stories that emerged along the way as well. So as we think about bringing this philosophy to life, right, we leverage AI technologies. We combined these with this idea of human intelligence to improve our research accuracy, to deepen consumer understanding, right, of our target audiences and prospective audiences that we want to serve. This sharpens decision making. So again, as we think about moving from insights to impact, really helping make sure that those are effective and that we're connecting those dots. What we have on the screen here are qualitative forward approaches that can be leveraged to uncover deeper dimensions of brand trust. So as we think about things like trust being built through immersive fan experiences or authentic brand engagement or alignment with cultural values, these are some of the tools and the techniques that build upon that AI plus HI foundation to help us uncover those real stories behind brand trust. And in a minute, we're going to go through some of those specific case studies and stories, including our very own brand trust survey to showcase these approaches in action.
Yeah, and before we do that, we want to throw a quick poll out to everyone here. You see a couple of methodologies here listed on the screen. We're really curious to know which sparks your interest, which you're most curious to learn more about, which you've tried and you're excited. So just a general gauge of your interest level in all of these. And while we let you go through and do the voting, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the methodologies that we're going to highlight in our success stories in the next few slides. One of the really cool things that we've brought on our team is this AI-moderated IDIs. And that is where we're, as it kind of implies, we remove the human moderator from the IDI. So what it does is it speeds up the entire process, allows us to get more interviews in the same amount of time as we would from human moderated IDIs, and enables speed in the insights and delivering insights to an organization quicker. Another one is a conversational AI survey. This one I really love. It brings Qual and Quant really close together. It helps us at bringing Qual to scale, but also to add that qualitative lens to what could be considered a more quant forward study. So it's really fun to see the two worlds kind of merging closer together. And both of them do leverage the AI analytics. There's a lot of ways, and I know Otto's going to talk about that here in a little bit, but we're really trying to leverage AI in the analysis, not just because it produces more themes or allows us to quantify, but again, it helps speed things up. It helps us get insights into our clients' hands quicker.
Yeah, those large data sets too, as we think about the emergence of
Absolutely.
Qual at scale, right? I think that the AI powered kind of analysis approaches have been instrumental in helping us take that preliminary pass or look at things like thematic analysis faster than we would be able to do with just human power alone.
All right, well, before we move on to our first success story, can we take a look at those poll results and see where we ended up? Oh, it's pretty evenly distributed.
Very
All right, I
even.
wasn't expecting this. This is fantastic.
Well, the
And to
good
your
news
point,
is,
Courtney, it reflects the AI, the prevalence and of AI that's top of mind for everyone these days, and how that supports Qual.
Absolutely. Very cool. Thank you, everyone. Casey, you want to talk a little bit about Hulu and some of the cool stuff we did with them?
sure, happy to. So, as we think about kind of the power of qualitative and understanding the facets of brand trust, I think the work that we did with Hulu is a wonderful example. We partnered with Hulu to measure the impact of its high-profile brand activations. These are experiences that they stand up at events like Anime Expo or Comic-Con, if anyone's heard of that one. And this research really was all about understanding and bringing focus to how these immersive experiences are shaping brand trust, and specifically shaping brand trust through things like product engagement, through things like customer experiences, right? And through things like marketing communications as well. And so our ability to blend AI-powered real-time conversational surveying, one of those methods that Courtney just talked about, with deep in-person qualitative insights, we were able to uncover the connected drivers of trust here, showing that fandom and that fandom trust isn't built in isolation, but it really comes to life through the seamless interplay of product authenticity, of brand experience, and is supported as well by messaging around that all as well. So in this case, we really learned that fans trust brands that protect the creative integrity of their content. So the authenticity in which these activations came to life at these events, right? When these activations felt immersive, when they felt personalized, and when they were reflective of fan culture, attendees actually were perceived the brand as not just a content distributor in that transactional state, right? But more of that community participant that understood, that respected its audience. How the brand also spoke to fans mattered is something that we uncovered through this research as well. And so that idea that trust is strengthened when messaging feels genuine rather than purely promotional, right? That was another important learning and insight that we gleaned here as we looked at the ways in which trust was established through these immersive activation experiences. I think we also learned across this research study, fans appreciated when the brand used storytelling rather than sales-driven language, really reinforcing this idea of shared values, this idea of mutual respect that made them feel important. And Otto will touch on this in the context of our brand trust study as well in just a moment. But I think the idea of integrity, again, we'll talk more about that, but that's a critical driver of trust and connection in this context. The brand being true to its core values, the brand ensuring that these experiences were consistent with expectations, that these experiences that they delivered were respectful of fan communities, and by demonstrating that understanding that trust in entertainment isn't just about quality, it's also about integrity. So Hulu was able to leverage these experiences to move beyond just being a content provider and really harnessing the power of becoming a trusted cultural force in how they show up in the world. So again, deepening that emotional connection with their fan communities. Courtney,
Yeah,
you
and
want
the
to go ahead
idea,
and take this? Go ahead.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was just going to say the idea of product and customer experience communications, it's kind of a theme going through a lot of what we're talking about here today. And obviously trust is as well. And let's shift from Hulu to AARP, just as exciting, right? I love this AARP work. It's so fantastic. And it was a great collaboration between the Qual team and the Accelerate team, but really was forward in our AI approach, which I think just really gave it a whole nother awesome dimension. So AARP was looking to better understand their target audience, and those are people aged 50 and over, um, not just members, but just people 50 and over, and understanding their usage and trust in technology and AI, and with the lens or the kind of more pinpoint filter of travel. And that was the focus of what our work was with them, to really understand how their key target group uses technology, right? They're evolving, they're a little different from the current AARP generation. The next generation of AARP eligible people have a different relationship with technology and AI, also potentially a different relationship with travel. And so we really wanted to understand that. And what we were able to do then is to create a mixed methodology approach where we did human moderated IDIs, AI moderated IDIs, and then a quantitative survey. So we really brought a lot of those different pieces together, which allowed AARP to be able to get quantitative feedback in large number, or excuse me, qualitative feedback in large numbers, but also have that backroom experience that some clients really enjoy, some topics really necessitate to help bring those insights into your organization. And so being able to pull those two together and deliver that to them was a really fun piece of this project. And what we were able to then deliver on the back end was a really comprehensive study because we followed it with a quant survey. So we were able to provide a comprehensive story to them for them to then start building educational materials and engage and invest in the digital experience to understand how to help those members and non-members engage with the digital content, or how to leverage AI for travel needs, right? So creating itineraries or suggested routes, all of these services that AARP offers, and helping them understand how to talk about it to make their audiences familiar with it. So as we think then about building on that and this idea of trust, I'm going to hand it over to Otto, and he's going to go deeper into the CMB brand trust survey from the qualitative perspective.
Thank you very much, Courtney. So a natural question could be that why are we focusing on measuring brand trust? Well, our research showed that there's a very strong correlation between trusting a brand and future brand consideration, brand loyalty, and satisfaction. So as we understand these linkages between trust and consumer buying behavior, we have a way to predict the outcomes of a brand if it were to take specific actions to move and improve their trust needle. So how did we get to these results? On the next slide, we'll talk about our methods that we had employed to get to these great findings. So, we had actually used a multi-method approach, and the idea over here was to capture all the variables out there to measure trust, but more importantly, uncover the layers of understanding about what that trust score really means. And we started off with a Quant survey, right? 1,400 plus adults across 3 different industries: financial services, technology and telecom, and media and entertainment. We had included a chatbot smart probe in this Quant survey to capture specific experiences related to brand trust, and we'll talk more about that shortly. I wanted to take the time to focus on our additional step, which was the qualitative insights that we gathered here, right? We had conducted over 50 interviews through which we recorded over 250 video responses that helped us tell this rich brand-specific stories about brand trust. Courtney earlier mentioned our agile qualitative methodology, and this is a prime example of that, right? This was executed while our Quant survey was in flight. These were unmoderated interviews where each respondent recorded a short video response to several independently asked prompts by us. And these prompts actually were influenced by how the Quant results coming in. We were looking at the interim reads, and that helped us guide which questions we should be probing in this Qual phase. So a great example of Qual and Quant working in tandem live. So as an example, on the far right of this slide, we have a quote which represents a video response to one such prompt about what a trusted brand means to you. And then at the back end, we used our AI technology to analyze these videos and uncover rich brand-specific stories. It was done in a very quick and efficient manner. And with that, we can, with that understanding, we can first talk about the components of brand trust. So based on our Quant survey data, our advanced analytics team, they cracked the trust nut by developing a brand trust score. And it includes 6 key pillars of trust that you can see on this slide. Now, the results over here are across all the industries and all the brands we had measured in our study. And it's important to realize that the relative importance of these pillars does vary by each category and subcategory. But at the overall lens, right, if we focus on the pillar of dependability and transparency and even integrity, we could be increasing our brand trust score more than where we stand today. That's the general idea of how we can look at these results. If we go to our next slide, right, that is where the agile qual approach revealed the dimensionality of brand trust. So by asking open ends, it helped us provide the opportunity to tease apart the nuance and the context of each of these 6 drivers of trust. And on this slide, you can see some example quotes that represent some of those pillars, through these stories that come to life, right? So the beauty of this research was not only did the Qual findings complement our Quant drivers, it added greater depth and quality of these open-ended stories, that we collected through this agile approach. It really helped us understand each pillar, right, for a given brand. And earlier, Courtney and Casey mentioned that, a brand could play up in terms of both building trust or even eroding trust. And all of that was unveiled through the beauty of qualitative at the heart of this research engagement. And a final point we would like to make here is that Qual insights do not necessarily need to come from a standalone Qual research. So as I had mentioned earlier, our survey benefited from the scalability of Qual across 1,400 responses. So on this slide, we're sharing with you results from that conversational smart probe within our Quant survey, and then we used our proprietary theme AI analysis to identify what are those top emotional themes that ladder up to a most trustworthy brand. And it was really cool to see this consistency and depth of insights between our Quant and Qual phases For example, it's very clear here that we confirm that brand stability and dependability are among the top themes in a trusted brand.
Yeah, it's really fun to see, Qual two ways and to see them not only tell the same story, but to complement each other and go a little deeper as needed. And your idea and thoughts about dimensionality as it relates to what drives trust is something I think it can be brought into this idea here too. And what I wanted to pause here for a moment before we go into the case studies is to just think about how brands impact or influence trust. And we're going to go through, you're going to take us through some case studies here. But when we think about those pillars of trust, there's multiple levers or dimensions within each of those pillars. And what we wanted to show and illustrate here and talk a little bit about is that it's not only one functional unit of an organization that's responsible for impacting a pillar or trust itself. It can go across multiple functional areas within an organization. So as you think about a future research study or research request that comes across your desk that may be product focused or customer experience focused, thinking about how you can build trust into your research plan and understand how you're impacting trust in that particular engagement can then help start to bring your organization's usage of trust in evaluation or understanding of the research results up a level. And we think that's really exciting. And so as you think about influencing dependability, it can go from product and communication. And when you think about transparency, that could be messaging and customer experience. And so we're here to help and guide with our clients on how we can make sure that trust is being measured in as many places as possible. So Al, do you want to take us through some case studies?
Yeah, thank you very much, Courtney. That's great context to have from the levers that could impact trust. So with that in mind, we can now talk about the trust score for brands that CMB developed, right? So on this slide, you can see we had actually tested over 70 different brands across 3 different broader industries in our study. And this is just a sample of some brands that we had included in our study. And from this distribution, the spread of trust, you can see that certain brands are doing great with respect to the brand trust score, while some other brands can stand to be improved, right? So what we felt would be a good use of our time today would be to focus on 2 brands across this range of trust. So Apple and Paramount as an example. The idea being we'll demonstrate how we can leverage the collective power of Quant and Qual to unlock those opportunity areas for a given brand. At this point, I do want to add a disclaimer, though, that the following findings are from CMB's self-funded research only and were not developed specifically for a company. So just keeping that in mind, we can move to our first case study on the next slide, and we'll start off with Apple, right? So if Apple were to consult with CMB asking what have we learned about their brand from our research, right? The first place to start off would be on the far right of this slide, which is the Apple's brand trust score of 59, which is actually on par with the tech category average of 60. If we only focused on this overall score, though, that is not telling the complete picture. We need to recognize the fact that Apple is a polarizing brand, right? Many Apple customers love this brand. They have very high levels of trust, as depicted by a score of 74 among customers, a super high score, right? These customers understand and appreciate Apple's premium make of products. They understand we get better security by being within Apple's closed ecosystem. They understand that Apple values us, our needs, and fixes any issues that may arise. We have a quote here from a Apple customer which said that there's Apple and then there's everything else. And that kind of depicts this mindset of, how they've internalized what Apple really stands for them. On the other side of the fence, though, there are many non-Apple customers today who really don't like the brand. And it may be a perception issue. They perceive Apple products to be overpriced. They believe that there's a barrier to them, that Apple's ecosystem is sticky for them. Those kind of mentions came up through Qualitative. And that is where the role of the Qualitative came up here, right? When we parse those qualitative video open ends and conversational chatbot open ends for Apple customers versus non-customers, it became clear to us that this customer first pillar of brand trust presents an opportunity for Apple, right? So what do we mean by customer first as a pillar? It's about attributes such as, this brand puts my needs first over their profits. This brand makes me feel valued and special, takes care of my needs, right? So through targeted communications and messaging related to their perceived value of secure products or their perception of value about customers' needs, right? That could be an area where Apple might get some prospects to convert over into the Apple ecosystem of products, right? Get them to experience this, and that could start moving the overall brand trust needle.
Yeah, I think as we were talking over what we were seeing here coming through between the brand trust score and between the qualitative comments as people were telling stories about trust building, erosion of trust, right? And we were really digging into the discrepancy in trust between non-customers and customers. I think Qual showcased that context matters, right? That understanding of the context revealed a dimensionality to trust that I don't think Quant alone brought forward. And so really by harnessing the power of these stories, we learned that brands like Apple are evaluated through many lenses. And so again, as we think about those opportunity areas, as we think about connecting the dots and translating insights to impact, right? In this case, communications to non-customers may prove to be a key opportunity to positively impact brand trust, particularly amongst non-customers here.
Great. Thank you very much, Casey. We can actually move to our next case study, which is about Paramount, right? So, it's from a different industry, the media and entertainment industry. And if on the far right, you can look at their brand trust score, it's considerably higher than the overall industry average of 52, right? So, but this is a good example to keep in mind that a brand should not stop their efforts related to trust score simply if they're better than the overall industry average. Because when you view their trust score of 64 against this disruptive subcategory of TV streaming, they're just slightly above average of 62, right? So that's the context to keep in mind as well, and where are we playing now versus going forward as well, right? And as we start understanding the situation for Paramount, right? Looking at the qualitative videos, we understood that the first thing is the trust pillar of integrity is much more important in the TV streaming subcategory overall. And what this pillar really means is this brand stays true to its core values. Their actions are consistent with their stated values. And, with this framework in mind, when we looked at the qualitative stories among Paramount's loyal customer base, they all point to this very strong media legacy of the Paramount brand, right? And if Paramount were to look ahead to capture younger generations who didn't grow up on traditional media, they could capitalize on this rich legacy and nostalgic feeling, right? What is that all about? It's about quality entertainment. They have a diversified portfolio of offerings. They are responsible about content being created and stories being told, and staying culturally relevant. Those are the kind of areas where Paramount could benefit to build greater trust among prospects within the streaming service.
And I think dimensionality, again, is coming forward as we look at this data, but in a slightly different way, right? Paramount appears to be trustworthy compared to legacy media. It's closer to on par when we look at it in the context of streaming. And so as we think about where Paramount can most impactfully affect trust, right? As we think about trust building that's going to have the biggest return for the effort that they are putting in, Paramount may be best served on focusing on deeper exploration of trust building, specifically in the context of streaming versus the broader media landscape where it's more at parity with the competitive landscape there. And so I think as we think about what we've learned as we reflect across these different case studies, as we think about the brand trust score and the work that was done in that body of work, we often hear this idea that, like, what does value mean or what does trust mean, right? When we're reporting out on brand metrics for our clients. And our clients are usually the ones being asked these questions. So when we think about our AI plus HI approach, it gives us the unique ability to bring that context to our studies, and it empowers our clients to be proactive in answering these inevitable questions. And as we reflect on kind of the stories and the learnings from our case studies and the results of the brand trust work, right? Quant alone is not enough to tell that story or to make meaningful recommendations for action at all times. And so we want you to ensure that as you think about the work that you are doing, the partnership that you bring forward, as you think about stakeholders and these cross-functional efforts that build and erode trust, right? We want to make sure you have the full story, that you are taking into context the power of qualitative and what that can unlock. So make sure you're not just measuring trust, but actively building it and understanding the multifaceted nature of it as well. So as you think about whether your goal is to strengthen existing brand equity, to bridge gaps between perception or reality, or uncover a deeper why behind consumer sentiment, agile qualitative research can help bring those insights to life and do so at scale and at speed within which business decisions are being made so that insights do not get left behind. And from here, we'll go ahead and wrap up. We have a few thought starters on how to apply these learnings. So going from kind of all of these wonderful ideas to what do I do with these? How do I bring these back to my organization, right? To help you with your own brand strategy, and talk a little bit about how our team can support you as you think about turning trust into a tangible competitive advantage. So again, really building on this foundational idea, I think that we've talked about across our conversation today, trust is not just a single dimension measurement. It's not a one-time effort either. It's really built or cultivated. And then from there, it requires attention. It requires care. It requires effort to keep, right? It's multidimensional. So again, as you think about kind of the intersectionality amongst product, CX, marketing and communication efforts, these things all work together to impact brand trust, and they often are not in isolation from one another. So as we think about CMB's agile, as we think about CMB's strategic qualitative solutions and how that can complement a quantitative understanding, we can really leverage qualitative to give brands the insights they need to continue learning and adapting.
Exactly. And I think as we think about from insights to action, right, a starting point for us would be the brand trust analysis in itself, right? We've talked a lot about the rich data that we have at our disposal. We have both Quant and Qual results for 70 brands across financial services, tech and telecom, media and entertainment. We'd be happy to kind of, please reach out to us. We'd be happy to work with you to share that information with you for your brand, for your competitors or industry subcategory in general. And together we can identify what's the right first step for you. Now, if your brand happens to be in a different category, please reach out to us. Let us know your interest because we are working on our next wave of the consumer pulse to measure brand trust among newer industries. And that'll be a great place to kind of have that context in as well. As an example, in the past month alone, we have had several clients come up to us asking for custom research for their brand or actually to do deep dives within a specific pillar of trust that's relevant to their category. We're also working on some research specifically focused on communications and their role with trust. So there's a lot of room for further exploration using this research.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as we think about the accelerate qual and the strategic qual as other ways for us to help uncover the brand, we wanted to say thank you to everyone and that we're here to help answer questions or outline potential solutions to problems as they come along. So we're really glad you are all joining us here today.
Yes, echoing that sentiment, Courtney, really thankful to have everyone tuning in with us live here today. Hopefully everyone's walking away informed, educated, and inspired with potentially some new ideas and a refreshed understanding of the importance of brand trust and the role that qualitative can play in understanding and monitoring the strategies that your team is building and deploying to positively impact brand trust. What we have here on the screen in the QR code is an opportunity to scan this to get the latest and greatest from our brand trust score report. And as we mentioned, if your brand is not included in this report, we did start with 70 brands. Feel free to reach out to our team for a conversation. We're happy to discuss how we can help you embark on this trust journey or evaluate trust, meeting you where you are in your respective journey. Also really excited to share as we think about next iterations and evolving kind of our understanding of brand trust. We are embarking on a second wave of our brand trust score efforts as well, with focus on new industries included. So again, feel free to reach out to us if you have questions, if you have interest in being included. I'm happy to have a conversation with you if you are interested in partnering to learn more about brand trust in your context. I think from here, do we feel like we're ready to tackle Q&A?
I think so. And
Absolutely.
honestly, I think you kind of answered the first one, you and Otto, but I will ask it anyways in case there's anything else to add. So one of the first questions we got was, what if my company isn't included in your brand trust study? How can I find out our brand trust score?
Got it, Courtney. I think as we had mentioned earlier, that there are several great places to start off with within the current research. So what I mean by that is, we can still share with you insights related to your industry, your category, right? That in itself is good context from the pillars of trust. Perhaps we have certain brands in our study that are your competitors you benchmark against. That also is a good place to start off with. But then also please reach out to us because we can design customized research specific for your brand, for your industry. And if we didn't measure your category, there's also an avenue to explore that in our next wave as well. So we'd be happy to hear from you on how we can partner together for that next step.
Great. All right, I'm playing MC now. Okay, next question. You mentioned agile qual and strategic qual. Help me understand the difference between them. Casey, you want to start? You want me to start?
I'm happy to start. I think when I think about how we kind of decide what fits into sort of the agile or the quick qualitative bucket versus the strategic, I think it's really about the focus of the objectives, right? How direct and focused are the objectives that we are looking at exploring? Usually the quick qualitative piece tends to be the focused one or two key objectives that are pretty tightly connected. Whereas as we think about the deeper strategic qual, these may be mushier objectives or things that we're after that we're not sure exactly what we're after, but want to explore, right? Or these ideas of building that really rich, deep foundational understanding. So that's kind of the starting point that I think of as I think about the nuance between.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I'll add, I think that either quick qual or strategic qual can be agile. And so the way that we approach qualitative and the agile or non-agile nature of it is really less important than the methodology itself for me, right? AI powered qual tends to not have a human moderator or a human touch involved, whereas your strategic qual tends to have more of the interpersonal relationships piece. Okay. What kinds of business challenges does the Accelerate team work on? Oh, fantastic. Thank you. So the Accelerate team is focused on the strategic insights, more tactical decisions. So our mandate and remit really is to speed up the process to insights. And so we don't generally work on a segmentation study or a discrete choice study because those tend to be longer in timeline, need a heavier hand, really benefit from a side-by-side consultative approach. What the Accelerate team focuses in on are repeatable studies, or if you're doing multiple iterations of a concept test, or you have a process for testing messaging at your organization, we can create a custom repeatable survey for you. So we do tend to focus on 2 or 3 key business objectives, making sure that our field process is efficient and delivering results as quickly as possible.
Great. Courtney, one more question came up, which is about how we weigh the role of customers and non-customers in deciding how well a brand is doing from a trust perspective. So just want to add that, through the couple of case studies, we represented the fact that there is a role for both users and non-users that comes out both from the quant and the qual lens, right? And they both have a weight in this whole kind of question that we're answering. And it goes back to the heart of our study design, right? As we're setting up the studies, we should make it, we actually have ensured that we have good solid reads from both sides of the equation in terms of brand users and non-users. We're trying to get insights from both those who are more trusting of a brand and those who are less trusting of that same brand, right? So that we get that complete 360 picture of trust building, trust erosion coming from both sides of the equation. And and then it goes to our advanced analytics teams and how they kind of design the modeling to factor in all of these nuances when developing a composite brand trust score.
Great. One last question I see here. Someone is curious, how have respondents been reacting to the new AI-powered research approach? Also curious to learn more about how it has helped with efficiency, effectiveness when it comes to reporting.
We get this question a lot, don't we? I love this one. I think this is top of mind for a lot of folks is what impact is that AI experience having? Who is engaging, right? Is there potential bias in terms of even who is responding? And I think, yes, it's something to pay attention to as we look back on the AARP travel tech project, right? We chose a hybrid approach that was human moderated plus AI moderated in that context because we wanted to make sure with this population of adults 50 plus, right? Were we going to have bias of folks that were choosing to respond, right? And so by taking that mixed method approach with that audience, we were able to sort of check and cross-check between the two kind of conversations that were being deployed, the human-led and the AI-led, to explore any differences that emerged between those. There are certain situations where we do stand up AI only. If we're doing, I think we just did one where we wanted to understand consumers' definition of something. So again, as we think about communications, right? Really just very quick questions that just ask for consumers to define a word or a topic for us and give us some examples of best-in-class brands that they thought of when they were talking about that word. So I think receptivity to AI is positive. We also, and I encourage other research teams to do this as well, measure the experience, right? This is fairly new to be deployed in the research context. I think consumers are fairly comfortable with the chatbot interface, the AI-led method, because of experiences and customer support touch points that they tend to have in today's world. But I do think that it is important for us to ask about these experiences. It may be one or two quick questions at the end of the research. And Courtney, I know on the Accelerate team, as your team has been deploying some of these AI-led unmoderated methods, right? That you've been very intentional about measuring the respondent experience. What have folks been saying?
Absolutely. And I heard you say like the AI customer experience, and I had this PTSD of calling, those automated things that you can never get all the way through the menu. That is not the experience that our respondents have. No, we have got really positive feedback, especially in the AI conversational survey space. That's a space where the whole experience feels different, right? You mentioned it feels kind of more like a chat, which people are very comfortable with. It's engaging, and from both respondents and clients, we've heard things like, this is the best piece of research I've seen in years. We've heard things like, best survey experience I've had in months. So we're really seeing some positive feedback and momentum on this approach, and are hoping to bring it to more studies as our clients are comfortable with AI. We know some clients are not able to use AI fully, and we've got ways to figure out how to leverage as much as we can within the rules that are there. So we're really excited to bring this to more people. We're having a great time.
Yeah, I think Tammy also asked one quick question here in the chat itself, and I want to kind of build because I think we touched on the front end of her question, but how do AI moderators do at probing? I feel like that is a place where the industry is really putting a lot of investment and involvement, because I think a lot of the early solutions for AI-led interviews didn't do a great job. They couldn't pick up on when someone had mentioned something or answered something previously in a question. And so some of the early feedback that we got as we were initially kind of self-funding research and deploying these technologies in more of an experimental way was, I already answered that question, right? Technology has evolved quite a bit. So we are seeing both AI bot moderation being more flexible in conversation. We are also seeing techniques be incorporated into the training of these tools to extend engagement. So I think one of the other shortcomings we've seen as we think about when to deploy these AI-led methods, right, as we think about AI interfacing with respondents directly, 15 to 20 minutes historically has been the sweet spot, but I think that the evolution of some of these tools and technologies pushed the envelope. So we're seeing a bit longer engagement, getting 20 to 30 minutes out of these AI-led conversations as tech evolves, and I think we will continue to see that evolve.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way, we have a client who's really interested in AI, and we're all very interested in AI, so it's definitely top of mind for us a lot these days. I was testing a study the other day, and I was just testing it, right? So the open end came up, and I just put in woohoo because I'm trying to get through it. And the AI came back and said, "Sounds like you're excited. Can you tell me why?" And I thought, "Oh my God, that's really cool." Like those little experiences in the survey, I think are what our respondents and our clients are really just finding exciting and different and new.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the nuance between voice captured responses where people are
Mhm.
speaking versus typing is one of the other nuances as we think about the strategy for how we craft our conversations, when to require a voice or video response versus a typed response. It's easier for folks to talk through their thoughts than to type them out, and we tend to get the more unfiltered thoughts when we do that voice or video capture as well. So there are some nuances in when and how we deploy that I think are quite interesting too.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank everyone for your attendance, your interest, your engagement, your questions. I want to thank Otto and Casey, Michelle for setting all of this up. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We had a lot of fun.
Yes, thank you all. Again, slides will
Thank
be
you, everyone.
shared as well as recording. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.